right, let's talk calendars. Now, at the beginning of every single year, I go for a little retreat with my wife, and for a day or two, we go away, we go somewhere, and we plan out our year. And it starts with a review of the past year, and then we look ahead into the future year. And part of this planning process is a calendar process where we're looking at the vacations that we want to take and the commitments we already have for the year, like conferences that I'm going to, or speaking events, or races, or anything that's time oriented. And so we put all that stuff on the calendar, and that sets the foundation for the rest of the year. And I've recommended this before because I think getting those big commitments on your calendar at the beginning of the year makes sure that they don't get bumped later. It makes sure that your work life kind of fills in around those things. But I learned a lesson last week. And the lesson is that using the calendar and planning at the beginning of the year is not enough. Because if you're like me, when things start to fill up and you've got to make decisions on what are you going to do and what are you not going to do. And so it kind of came to a head last week for me where I told my wife about some event that I was going to that wasn't on her radar. Even though it was on the calendar, it wasn't on her radar because it had just popped up. And she made some comment like, it seems like things are filling up. We need to take a step back and look at this. And so we carved an hour out after the kids went to sleep. And I pulled out this huge wall calendar that I have that I hadn't filled out this year. I've used it in past years, but I hadn't filled it out. And we started going through with just a pencil and writing out trips and meetings, flights, appointments, kids' sports things, birthdays, weekend trips with parents, business groups that we're in, conferences, all these different things. And from now through the end of the year, that calendar pencil marks all over it. Like it was filled. And I still had things that were in consideration. I had conferences potentially to speak at, this event in Spain that I was going to go to, potential trip with some friends, all these things that weren't even on the board yet. And what was on the board was totally full. And so my wife looked at me and she said, this is not going to work. You need to figure out what you're not going to do because you can't be gone this much. And so we had a good talk about it. And we decided a couple things that I was not going to do, the things I'm going to say no to going forward, the space that I need to leave on the calendar for the family events through the rest of the year now that the kids' school schedule is out. And we had that kind of like mid-year important sit down to talk through that. And so as I was thinking about this, the idea of like zooming out and looking at that full calendar to understand your commitments, I think I actually do this really well in the company. And so I'll share what we do in the company for my time, which is definitely better than how we've done it on the personal side of my life. But with the company, every month I have a meeting with Hayden, my assistant, and Chelsea, our chief of staff. The three of us go into our conference room. We put the calendar up on the screen in the conference room, and we go through week by week all of the different meetings, appointments, travel, everything that was in there. Now, throughout the month, my assistant is tagging these appointments, and she uses a tool called Time Tackle. You can check it out, but she's tagging these things with just a simple Chrome extension and categorizing the types of appointments. Is it sales related? Is it product related? Is it a networking type group that I'm a part of? Is it meetings with leadership team or one-on-ones? Is it creating content like recording stuff like we're doing now? And every month we go through this analysis of how that time is being spent and how we need to reallocate time across the next month. Do I need more of a certain number of appointments because it feels like I'm heavily weighted in one area and I need to spend more time on our leadership team or on the product in the next month? And so that zoom out to understand percentage-based allocations of time is super useful. And whether you're using a tool to do this or not, I highly recommend you taking that time, take that pause and zoom out. Look at your calendar, do a monthly review, even if it's just with yourself. And after the lesson that I learned last week, I would suggest doing this monthly or quarterly with your spouse if you have one as well, or your significant other, and saying, let's look at the month ahead, let's look at the quarter ahead, and let's make sure that we're on the same page. Because running a business is hard enough if you're not aligned with your spouse. So just a simple reminder from the lesson that I learned last week that you need to be really clear, really aligned on the time commitments that you're making, on the expectations that someone at home may have of you, and you should be smart about where you're spending your time. So zoom out, look at your own calendar, and hopefully this helps you be more efficient and have better relationships over the next couple months.